Welcome to the Rosbergs, your marriage coaches. Join Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg, America's family coaches, who bring 4 decades of empowering marriages across the U.S. and internationally for this podcast to equip you and your partner with encouragement and tools for a great marriage. Here now are your hosts, Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg.
We're Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg, your marriage coaches, and we are absolutely delighted to come alongside of you with this podcast, Barb, that we're calling Some Like It Hot.
And why are we calling it Some Like It Hot? Maybe some do, some don't. But why do we call it that?
Because God created sex. He created it for our pleasure. He dreamt the whole thing up, and we're glad that he did. And a godly marriage isn't built upon great sex, but great sex comes out of a godly marriage.
Which is when you take the time to build safety, trust, emotional connection, empathy. Now, a lot of people are thinking that's a lot of work. Well, marriage is, and it can be delightful, and you can really hit those high notes when you know that you're walking in agreement, that you're choosing to unify because it's God that has given us this great gift that we can have in marriage, Gary.
And that's why we're talking about Some Like It Hot, because you know what? Great sex in a godly marriage, Barbie, is God's design. We did a book several years ago called The 5 Sex Needs of Men and Women.
With the subtitle?
With the subtitle, Great Sex in a Godly Marriage. And, Barbie, we researched 600 couples in that book to identify what do you need in order to have great sex. And so we're going to be highlighting some of that information in today's program, and then a special opportunity for you as listeners to our podcast. If you write an email requesting a copy of the Some Like It Hot Sexual Needs Assessment, you send that to info@afcoaches.com. So AF is for America's Family Coaches. So info@afcoaches.com, and ask for a free copy of the Some Like It Hot Sex Needs Assessment. Then you can get this for your own marriage. And hubby can take it, wife can take it, and then you can look at how you compare, how you contrast, how you're different, how you're the same, how you kind of compare it to some of those 600 couples that we researched. And then if you want to go further, take a look at the book, The 5 Sex Needs of Men and Women.
You know, people love this, Gary. It's a hot topic. That's why we're calling it Some Like It Hot. We spoke and did a conference in a church in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, and the people loved it. They laughed. They were pausing. They were connected. And people here in Des Moines wanted it last weekend, so we did a date night. Yeah. Yep. So you're thinking, why do people talk about this? Because oftentimes people don't in marriage, let alone in church. Well, we were speaking in Menominee, Wisconsin a couple of years ago, and you and I had done a full session of marriage coaching, and about 1:00 hour on a Saturday, we talk about Some Like It Hot. We talk about sex in marriage. And the pastor was absolutely fantastic. He just really was a great teacher. And he came up to me during that break. You were off lunch, coaching someone.
Yeah, I was counseling some poor guy. And
and doing the right thing and pouring into him. And so the pastor came up to me and said, I talk about it from the pulpit all the time. And I looked at him and I said, don't you have kids in the church? He goes, oh, yeah, church. Kids are filling the pews with their parents. But what I say when we're talking about it is Yahtzee. And it's the code word, and the parents know exactly what we're talking about. The kids have no idea. So Gary came back in for the 1:00 hour. Yeah. I usually am the first one up to the microphone, although we are both at the microphones. But it's my turn first. And I stood up and I said, ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon, we're talking about Yahtzee. And the whole place stood up and cheered, except for Gary, who was shaken to the core.
What's Yahtzee? I mean, I thought we were talking about sex.
You were totally taken back, like, what is going on? Well, in the same way, in marriages, often marriages don't talk about it. They don't know how to bridge it,
It's really
how
true.
to begin. They don't know what to say to their spouse. They don't know how to say, what could be better? What can we do to enhance our marriage? And you might ask your mate privately, what do we need to eliminate? But don't get into that right now. Allow us to be your coaches and teach you the why and the right timetable and what can really bring out the best in your marriage.
Yeah, Barbie, I just came from a luncheon of ministries. They meet quarterly. There are about 100 people there today, and these are all ministry leaders. And I was talking to a guy that comes to our date nights, and they missed Saturday night, Some Like It Hot. And I said, let me give you the biggest takeaway. And this guy's got 3 kids at home. I said, typically what couples do is they establish the way they experience and express sex in their marriage very early in the marriage relationship. They kind of have a pattern of what that looks like. You know, how do you lead up to that? What are the activities? You know, how is touch expressed? All of those different things. And I said, but then what we find with most couples is they don't go back and revisit the discussion. They don't talk about the topic. It's the elephant in the bedroom. And so they don't talk about it. So they just continue to go back to same old, which is fine if that's working for you. But what we were challenging the couples, both in Des Moines recently, and then a couple of weeks before that in Chicago at our the 2 churches that we attend when we were in our 2 different locations, is that couples should go and get a cup of coffee or a smoothie or whatever, take a walk, go out on a park bench somewhere, or maybe pull the truck over and just enjoy some time and just say, is what we're doing still working for us? Does it bring encouragement and pleasure? Is it safe? Is the marriage bed kept pure? Is God glorified in our lovemaking? And is there something I need to learn? Is there something I need to maybe take a different perspective of? Let's talk about the elephant in the room so that we can stay current with one another.
And I would encourage you both as a couple to listen to this podcast. Maybe one of you are listening to it now, but you're going, let's go back, and we're both going to listen to it. Otherwise, Gary, if you just do this out of the blue, the person that did not listen to the podcast is going, okay, I did something wrong.
Yeah, where'd this come from?
There's something wrong in our marriage. Yeah. What happened? Are you having an affair? Is there something going on? I mean, it breeds insecurity and it triggers inadequacy. So what I would encourage you to do is have a romantic night. Feel good about your experience with your spouse. And within a few days, after you've eaten and after you've had a good night's sleep, agree that maybe you'll take either our book or our questionnaire or maybe this podcast and listen to it, and agree that you can talk about it logically and learn some things that bring joy and pleasure to your relationship.
So let's reframe sex in your marriage, because here's the deal. Sex problems aren't the real issue. What we have found is most of the time, sexual attention is a symptom, not the root problem. One author said that when sex is good in a marriage, it's about 10% of the marriage. When sex is bad in a marriage, it's about 90% of the marriage. And so sexual intimacy really reflects the emotional climate of the marriage. So when couples feel safe and they feel seen and they're valued, then that's when intimacy flourishes.
And often, Gary, it's the woman that she has got the barometer. She's taking the temperature of, is it good?
Yeah.
Has there been emotional connection? Has there been quality time and quantity time, both? Does she feel seen? Does she feel heard? Does she have her husband's complete attention? Does she sense that he only has eyes for her? So these are all parts of the emotional climate of the marriage.
The marriage bed. Yeah, they really are. And the research that we did really reflected something powerful, and that's that both husbands and wives ranked emotional connection and affirmation far higher than most people expect. So, Barbie, let's walk through these 5 sex needs of men and women and give a highlight to the couples that we're coaching today with the Rosbergs Your Marriage Coaches.
Affirmation is so key in our marriage, especially to women. I mean, women told us very directly that 65% of women said this: I need to have affirmation from my husband about who I am, not only behind the locked doors of my bedroom, but outside the bedroom as well.
Yeah, honey,
it was Kevin Lehman who
that's
said,
powerful.
It is, but Kevin Lehman, I want to give him full credit. He said sex begins in the kitchen. It means that men,
when I first heard that, I thought,
that is
there's
so
a
great.
thought.
Well, he's great. He's a great writer. I'd grab the book if I were you. It's really, really good. But it's like taking out the trash. It's, you know your wife.
Doing the dishes.
You know what she really loves. It's when you vacuum.
Yeah, baby.
I was giving him sort of a code. But with that said, you know your wife. And if you can lift something off of her list, she's going to do a double take. And that is something that is softening her heart and creating the atmosphere of affirmation. I want to continue, but I can tell you've got something to say.
Say more about that. So affirmation inside the bedroom. So that's when a man is speaking, just blessing over his wife and how incredible she is. And
wait, say that again.
She looks to him, how incredible you are and how much you mean to me. And so it's affirming in the bedroom. But Barbie, unpack that, because guys need to learn this. Women need to learn it too. That affirming our wives outside of the bedroom, as a woman, as a wife, as a mom, as a friend, as a daughter, all those things, it's important to affirm our wives.
Well, it's very important, and it's very important that our husbands are authentic, because, if you say to me in the first thing in the morning that I'm this incredible wife, and I know how I'm waking up with bedhead, and I need some work before I get to the first part of the day, I'm going to look at you and go, well, be specific. What do you love the most about me?
Yeah.
Because honest, true, women need to know, what is it you love about me? Where are you really validating me? And you're not just saying it and checking it off the list, but it comes from your heart. It comes from your gut. Where can you not live without her? Another point I want to really include, this is very important, and if I have to cover it every show, I will, that when we communicate, Yale research says this, that it's 55% body language. So if your wife is talking and you're all closed up and you're looking the other way, somehow you're giving her the tell. Yeah. You are so not interested.
Yeah, disconnected.
And you're dissing her.
Yeah.
And talk about shrinking the esteem of your wife. Yale research says that 38% is tone of voice. Oh, sometimes when a man speaks to his wife like he is speaking to another man, his voice gets lower. I was going to imitate, but that wouldn't be worth it. A man's voice gets lower and maybe grouchier or growlier. I don't know. But that's a time when I think, guys, you need to realize that the message you're sending, 38% of the whole message is tone of voice. Only 7% is words, Yale research says. So a dear and precious friend of ours told us that it was last week that she had her husband say something. He got a little triggered over something she did or did not do. She didn't go into details, but she moved close to him and took his cheeks and said, "Sweetheart, it's your tone of voice." And she imitated what she needed from him. Do you know that touch alerted him? It triggered love. Her tone of voice assured him that he was loved. It's reciprocity, Gary. To affirm is when you get filled up. It builds your resiliency in your heart so that you have something to give to your spouse.
And Barbie, I think it's affirmation of a wife to the wife, but it's also affirmation of a wife to the kids. It's affirmation of a wife to her parents and his parents. It's affirmation to a wife of his coworkers or neighbors or friends or people at church or in the community. In other words, when you're a one-woman kind of man, and I've often said one woman is plenty.
Wait, say that enough.
Yeah, why?
Wait, say it again.
Why would any man want another woman? Because, women are a handful and guys are a handful. So.
And we have a female dog, and we have 2 female daughters, and
I'm a minority in sorority, is what that means.
5 granddaughters,
But when I affirm you in front of other people, or affirm you to other people, you're there or not there, it speaks that there's a sense of unity and oneness in our marriage. And it blesses a wife because it comes back to her.
Yeah, it does.
And so affirmation is important. Now, I also
want to encourage you that it shows a guarded heart.
A guarded heart.
And
Gary,
a
connected heart.
A very connected heart. And you will often sign your letters, what?
Guard your heart.
And you get that where?
From Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for it's the wellspring of life.
So when you are speaking highly of your wife, this one, or if any one of you are speaking highly of your wife, it does come around. It does change the atmosphere.
And it comes out of a guarded heart.
And it comes out of a guarded heart, guarded eyes, guarded ears, and choosing to have guarded hands as well. So with that, Gary, I'm going to just hand off to you if there's anything else you'd like to say.
Well, that's number 1 for women. Now, it was number 5. So the 5th sexual need for men is affirmation. So it made the top 5 for guys, too, that when our wife affirms us, we feel better about who we are. And we've established with you in the past that the number 1 need that men have is that sense of feeling adequate. And so when a wife catches us doing something and is grateful and says thank you, and it reflects our adequacy, that a guy feels better about himself. And so affirm your husband as well, because your husband, and I'm not saying call 1-800-WHAN-WHAN-WHAN, but your husband's getting beat up all day long. If your husband is a man of God and he's walking in integrity in the marketplace, in work, in relationships with his friends, in his church, as a dad, he's getting the snot beat out of him all day long by a culture, by Satan, and by his own flesh. Now, there's a lot there. We could do a whole program on just that. But guys are getting beat up if they are submitted and surrendered to Christ. So if we're saying guard your heart, guys, so that other women aren't speaking into you, then we really need our wife to affirm us and speak into us. So wives, know that you're blessing of him. You're cheering him on. You're believing in him. Even when the guy comes up short, reminds him that you are sold out for him as well. So affirmation is a key issue for women and for men. And
this ties right into another need that we as women have, and it's emotional connection.
Yeah.
We need heart to heart with our husbands. There's something so powerful that when someone is with you.
With you, yeah.
And being able to divide the burden. Yeah. To openly share the hurt, to be not only transparent in thought, but vulnerable with emotion, and know.
Gosh, that's good, Barbie.
With is so powerful. Gary, in this last weekend, we quoted this book. This is another good one. It's called The Case for Marriage. And it was written by Linda Waite and Maggie Gallagher. And I want you to know that before I tell you what they said, 59% of women told us in our research that we need connection in our marriage in order to have a great sex life. Yeah. But Maggie Gallagher and Linda Waite say this, that those that are married are happier, healthier, and better off financially.
And they have better sex.
Than
those who are single.
And so now think about it. There is a symbolic door in your marriage. It's the back door. You got the front door, you got the back door. That back door is locked up. In fact, there is no door there. It's a forever marriage. It's a covenant marriage. It's when you took your vows before the Lord.
We're all in.
And when you've got the freedom, which in Genesis, when God made Adam and then he made Eve, and after they were together, he said, it is not only good, it is very good. So I would say this, there is extreme freedom in a marriage when you know that your spouse is never going to leave you, never going to forsake those vows. And that even together, if there's been mistakes, that you can come into agreement and you can decide on your knees to be faithful to one another by being faithful to God first, faithful to one another, and then in marriage, Gary, live it up. because God gave us this gift of sex. He's the designer of it. And it is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Expression. So emotional connection is important to women. And a lot of women think, well, emotional connection is not important to my husband. You're wrong. Emotional connection is important to your husband. So some women will say, okay, then I'll be passive. Go ahead and do your thing because you have this need for orgasm and in order to connect to me. And that's true, he does. But a lot of men will tell us, and they told us in our research, they want to be emotionally connected to their wife. They just don't lead with that often. So they'll lead with the physical aspect. And after physical intimacy, when they're going through the resolution after that orgasmic response, that's a great time to connect to what your husband is experiencing under the waterline of his emotions. And so don't miss the opportunity to connect because men need emotional closeness as well.
So, Gary, after a man experiences orgasm, is he then more open to
more
talk
tender?
time?
He's more open.
More wanting to listen and learn?
Yeah. And because the edge is taken off. And so that testosterone has been rising and he's been, becoming maybe more irritable, more frustrated, a little bit more anxious. And that's why wives need to know what's the sexual rhythm of their husband. Because some guys are, every 72-hour guys. Some guys are every 48-hour guys. Some guys are once-a-day guys. The important is, what is your guy? And husbands, for you to know your wife. What is her sexual rhythm? Barbie, it's absolutely phenomenal. But I've been studying spontaneous sex versus responsive sex. 28% of women will be spontaneous sexually driven. So 28% of women will apparently out of nowhere become aroused sexually and either initiate or respond, we'll talk about that in a moment, to sexual intimacy with their husband. But 70% of those women are responsive, so they're not thinking about it. The research is men think about sex, one guy says up to 60 times a day. And that's why, wives right now all across the world are breaking their pens and their earbuds going. That's why men that don't get anything done. Most recent research I read last week is 19 times a day a guy's thinking about sex. And yet when she initiates or responds, then that guy feels like $1 million and he connects to his wife as well.
I was just imagining the man on the street going up to men going, and how often do you think about sex?
yeah, probably not. Leave that to the experts. Don't try this at home.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Barbie, another sexual need for men and women, well, for men especially, is something called mutual satisfaction. In fact, it came in number 1, and that fascinated us. So we surveyed 600 couples. They were in 8 different geographical locations where we were on live radio, call-in radio at the time, and said, answer the survey. And then we started to call up and interview people and say, why did so many men say that a mutual satisfaction was their top need? And then we listened. And the theme was simply this: men like to be good at everything they do. They like to be good at taking care of their lawn. They like to be good at knowing their best sports team and the stats. They like to be good at technology. They like to be good at taking care of finances. They like to be good at taking care of stuff. And so why would a man not feel good if he pleases his wife sexually? It makes a man feel more like a man. And again, Dr. Kevin Leman says that sex is the doorway into a man's sense of self-esteem and self-image. When a man senses that he fulfills his wife sexually, he feels better about himself.
So often a man will lead with sex. He'll want
lead with
that sex to be, what's the word? Satisfied.
Yeah. And satisfy his wife.
And right. And so really, if your husband's getting really grouchy and we go scratchy, or he just flares up more, he's more triggered with his temper, think to yourself, when was the last time you had sex with your husband? I mean, if you're not thinking about it, then there's a problem, because you both need to be thinking about each other's rhythm within marriage. But at the same time, guys, what Gary's just described is this mutual satisfaction. Yeah. But do you want a wife that's excited about you? Sexually excited about you? Do you want a sexually responsive wife?
Come on.
Okay, so right now I'm putting the paper between us. Do you want a sexually responsive wife? Yes. Okay. Do you want? I know we can't do this. Here's the deal. How are you treating her outside of the bedroom? How are you treating her on the days that are so-called off and you're not having sex? How are you emotionally nurturing her in between those times of what you and I would call appointments with one another? And if you don't understand, maybe one of you is going, yes, I need the understanding, I need the trust, I need quality time, I need talk time, I need connection before we have sex. Whereas the other one of you says, let's do it now. Then you'll get the emotional attention, conversation, anything you want after we've had sex. Bottom line is we are different. The differences are not to divide us. The differences are not to build a war or have conflict in your marriage or have disagreement. The differences are what makes marriage exciting because you're continually growing and you need to be teachable as a spouse. So really within marriage, if you know your spouse's need, one day, one of you might want to go, I want to go the way of my spouse. Another season in your life, you might want to go, well, it needs to be another way. But you figure it out. That's the beauty and the pleasure and the mutuality of loving God and loving your spouse and putting a locked door on it. Number one, to keep your kids out and everybody else. But number two, there's no back door. When there's a covenant of marriage, there's freedom, there's expression, there's creativity and laughter, and there's oneness that is experienced.
So, Barb, if a guy says, do you want to have sex? And his wife says, well, that's the last thing I was thinking about. I was going to wash the dog and make dinner.
And clean out the refrigerator. Which makes total sense to me.
Yeah. If she says no, and then the guy feels rejected, because a guy, if he's thinking about sex 19 times a day or 60 times a day or somewhere in between probably, and he initiates, she says no, he feels rejected. So when she says no, one of the things we coach couples to say is...
When?
Okay, so instead of no, say when.
When.
So if not now,
when? Yes. I was thinking that when a man comes home at the end of the day, he's starving. Your kids, they're starving. Everybody's starving. Everybody's waiting for dinner. But I'm going to focus only on your man because we are only talking about marriage right now, exclusively marriage. But if your husband were coming home and he hadn't had any food, say in 3 days, and he's starving, and without realizing it, you said, dinner's not ready. It won't be ready until, in 3 days. Well, that would probably cause any human being to be just at their wit's end. So if you can answer this invitation for sex, and that sounds very direct, but when you're married, it comes in different forms, and often it is direct. If you have to say, I can't do it right now. There's 10 kids in the house and my mother is in the other room and, it's not convenient. But what about an appointment within 24 hours? I've never said 12 before.
No.
One of you needs to do it within 12 hours. Somebody needs to hear that. 12 hours.
If you say not now, but tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
Sure. Or even tonight.
If you said that to me, I'd be home at 7:30. It's the only time a guy gets home early.
So So I've never said this, but between 12 and 24 hours, get her done. And you know what? You will be blessed. Both of you. You will both be blessed. Yeah. And even if it's not on your to-do list, and even if it's not convenient, and even if just use words and say when. And it might sound like your needs are very important to me and I share with you and I have them too. Can we agree that we need an appointment and it's at blank time within 12 to 24 hours?
Then that gives a wife time to prepare.
Emotionally.
Right. It gives a wife a time to not be caught off guard.
Right. She can wash the dog and clean out the refrigerator and call her mother back.
Yeah.
Get a babysitter for the kids.
Yeah. Paul addresses this in 1 Corinthians 7, verse 5. He says, do not deprive one another. In the context of a covenant marriage, Barb, a husband's body belongs to his wife and a wife's body belongs to her husband. And so Paul says, don't deprive one another except, and he gives two reasons, with mutual consent. So that means you both agree for time. So he puts a time limit on it. And then he gives the reason. So you can devote yourselves to prayer. Now, that's good.
And it's true.
Yeah.
For
because
those...
spiritual intimacy trumps sexual intimacy.
Yes, but for those of us that love to pray, and I love to pray,
love to pray,
then there is a season that your relationship with the Lord supersedes this time with your husband. But you want to make sure that your horizontal relationship with your husband, you are his wife. Be of sound mind. Make sure you do not exceed the 24-hour rule.
Then Paul continues and he says, then come back together, lest you too are tempted by Satan because of your lack of self-control. 1 Corinthians 7:5, that preaches. So don't deprive one another, except you both agree for a time because you're devoting yourselves to prayer. Come back together so that you're not tempted by Satan. And that is absolutely marvelous instruction for us. And so when you say no, say when.
Absolutely.
And Barbie, you know what? That keeps guys out of the danger zone. It gives guys a reason to say, okay, I'm going to honor the marriage bed. Hebrews 13:4 says marriage should be honored by all and the marriage bed kept pure. And that verse is foundational. That's what we taught at our date nights with our couples and marriage champions. We're training them, and so that we're passing this message to the next generation. And couples are thirsty to know, how do you do marriage? Well, how do you do sex? There's 3 kinds of sex. There's the romantic kind of sex that you plan for, and it's, you've got the dinner and the, all the candles, and it's beautiful, and that's awesome. So you want to have that romantic, complete sex. That's the Ruth Chris Steakhouse kind of sex. That's the Morton Steakhouse. That's the top of the line. There's a second kind of sex, and it's more of a consistent pattern of sex. And so it doesn't quite have all the bells and whistles. But then there's kind of takeout, so it's like driving through a taco place, and it's just kind of a quick experience, and yet that's not a good diet. So sometimes we just need the physical connection, and that's more of a quick connection for sex. And it's good and it's fulfilling as far as the physical need, but it doesn't deepen the relationship.
I think, too, that the longer you're married, now some of you might have been married, beyond 6 years. Who knows how long you've been married? Only you know. But there needs to be that variation.
Yeah.
And to make room for, whether it's the 5-course meal, whether it's just straight up dinner time, or if it's the drive-through. So it's all a matter of knowing your spouse, understanding not only their needs, but your own needs, and paying attention to strengthening your marriage, because sex is very, very important in marriage. Just as you said earlier, when it's going really well in marriage,
10%.
10%. When it's not going well in marriage, what is it?
It's 90%.
Yeah. And it's a headache if it's not going well.
So there are more sex needs. We'll talk about those in future podcasts. But we want to do 2 things as we close this. Number 1, if you would like a copy of the Some Like It Hot assessment, it's a series of questions that Barbie and I designed. It's based on our book, The 5 Sex Needs of Men and Women. It's free. So you just need to send an email. And our email address is info@afcoaches.com, info@afcoaches.com, and just ask our team for a copy of the Some Like It Hot 5 Sex Needs questionnaire. We'd love to send it to you. Here's number 2, is sanctify the marriage bed. And the next time we address the sex needs, we'll talk a little bit more about some of these other sex needs, and we'll talk about Hebrews 13:4 and the power of that, because it is powerful. We're so grateful you're listening. We are cheering you on. We believe in you, and we're grateful that we are your marriage coaches. So listen next time to the Rosbergs, your marriage coaches. Till then, guard your heart. We'll see you soon.
Hey listeners, make sure to stay up to date with the Rosbergs by subscribing to their show, Your Marriage Coaches, on any major podcast platform such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you will get an alert each time a new episode is released. Whatever platform you're listening on, please rate the podcast and leave us a review.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Rosbergs, your marriage coaches, with Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg. To find out more, go to americasfamilycoaches.com. Once you're there, you can check out the many resources that they have available. From their many books to their informative video series, 6 Secrets to a Lasting Love, they've got all the tools you need to help you grow deeper in your relationship with your spouse and with God. Go to americasfamilycoaches.com and click on the Resources tab. We appreciate your prayers and support for this ministry. Find out how you can come alongside us when you go to americasfamilycoaches.com. Just search the top of the index for the Donate tab. Thank you for listening in today. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of The Rosbergs, Your Marriage Coaches, with Gary and Barbie Rosberg.